Hello, everyone. Tonight, we journey deep into the sun-dappled woods of ancient Arcadia, where every leaf whispers secrets. Every breeze carries a song, and every shadow hides something mischievous. You're barefoot, of course, because apparently shoes were too modern, and your only plan is to follow a goat. That's right, a goat. Not just any goat either. This one stole your last fig and head-butted your favorite mug off a boulder, so now it's personal. You crash through bushes, leap over twisted roots, and try not to trip on your own pride. The goat darts ahead, white hooves barely touching the mossy floor, leading you deeper and deeper into unfamiliar woods. Vines tug at your arms like clingy toddlers. Birds shout unsolicited commentary overhead, and somewhere in the distance a very sarcastic owl watches it all unfold. You don't see it, but it absolutely sees you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world we all settle in for a bedtime story. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've chased this goat for 20 minutes? An hour time doesn't work the same in mythic forests. The deeper you go, the greener things get moss that practically glows trees thick as towers, and a strange scent in the air. It's part jasmine, part petrichor, and part... was that roasted chestnut? Who knows? And then you see it. A clearing. A perfect ring of grass in the middle of nowhere, sun pouring in like golden soup. The goat is there, casually chewing a flower with the smug look of someone who just hacked your email and changed your wallpaper to a photo of them lounging. You lunge. The goat bolts, and you follow, straight into a patch of vines that look suspiciously like they're trying to hug you forever. You twist, you turn, you do a half cartwheel that would have scored a solid 6 at the Mythic Olympics, and then snap. Your foot catches. Your arms flail. The ground gives way beneath you. Splash. You've landed in a shallow pool fed by a tiny trickling stream, its edges lined with smooth stones and oh joy bees. Lots of them, because nothing says mythical detour like a face full of angry honeymakers. The bees, thankfully, seem too sleepy or bored to care. Maybe they've seen worse. Maybe they're just judging you quietly. Either way, they buzz off and you flop onto your back in the cool water, gasping, dripping, and questioning every decision that led you here. Water trickles around your ears. Overhead, the canopy opens just enough to reveal a slice of sky, pale blue like the inside of a god's teacup. Somewhere in the distance, the goat bleats victorious. You sit up, peeling leaves from your tunic, and squint at the banks. Long, slender reeds grow there, bobbing gently in the breeze. You remember your cousin once used one to blow bubbles into his drink. It was gross. But now, dripping and defeated, you pluck a reed from the ground. You bite it. Immediately regret it. It's bitter and stringy, and tastes like celery's evil twin. You try again this time, snapping it clean and blowing into one end. It squeaks, loudly, like a mouse impersonating a trumpet. You blink, then grin. You pluck another reed, slightly shorter, and blow. A different squeak. Higher this time. Your brain, up until now mostly focused on mud and revenge stirs. 2 squeaks, 2 pitches. Could they be played together? You twist 2 reeds side by side awkwardly, pressing them to your lips and exhaling. The result is, well, it's not music, but it's something. A warbling, wobbly sound that makes your ears tilt in curiosity. You experiment. 3 reeds. 4, each one cut a little shorter than the last. You arrange them in your hand like a tiny ladder and blow across the tops. This time, the sound is softer, more wind than whistle, but it shifts, lilts, almost sings. A passing butterfly hovers interested. That's one more audience member than your last poetry recital. In this quiet pocket of the world with frogs chirping nearby and sun painting dappled patterns on your soaked legs, you play. You lose track of time. The notes aren't perfect, but they're yours. Raw, strange, accidental. Historians still argue whether reed flutes like yours originated here in Greece or whether they drifted over from ancient Mesopotamia or even far-off China. But right now, in this secret glade, none of that matters. You're not trying to change music history. You're just bored, wet, and oddly inspired. You gather more reeds, stripping them with your teeth, trimming them with the sharp edge of a rock. You try different lengths, angles, even blowing sideways like you've seen Apollo do with his lyre strings. You laugh. It's ridiculous, and weirdly wonderful. There's a distant rumble thunder. A god sneezing. You ignore it. You're busy inventing. At one point, you manage a 5-note scale that actually makes a squirrel stop mid-nut and stare. That's when you know you're on to something. Not great, not yet, but something. The sun lowers, shadows stretch, and the clearing takes on a golden glow. You don't notice. You're hunched over your bundle of reeds, humming along, carving little notches. The goat returns, watching you with suspicious respect. You name your instrument. Nothing yet. It's not ready for a name. It's just a bundle of reeds. Like you, it's still figuring itself out. But tonight, alone in the woods, surrounded by moss bees and possibly judgmental butterflies, you invent something new. You don't know it yet, but this silly, squeaky riverbank accident will echo across continents and centuries. Not bad for a guy who fell in chasing a goat. You wake up with a reed stuck to your cheek and a mosquito bite the size of a grape behind your ear. The forest hums quietly. Dew clings to your eyelashes and your back is one with the earth now. Somewhere above, a bird laughs. Not sings, laughs. You sit up slowly, like an elderly tortoise returning from battle, and realize that, yes, you did sleep in a pile of ferns. You glance around the clearing. Your bundle of reeds is still there, cradled between 2 mossy stones, like nature's attempt at a display stand. The goat is gone, probably off writing its memoir. The morning air smells like damp grass wood smoke from a distant shepherd's fire and something suspiciously floral. You're sore, itchy, and still wearing yesterday's tunic, which now has a new rip and smells faintly of mildew. Naturally, you pick up your weird reed-born invention and start blowing into it again. You expect yesterday's squeaks. But overnight, something changed. Maybe the reeds dried just a little. Maybe your lungs finally adjusted. Or maybe the gods felt bad for you. Either way, the sound is clearer. Airy, breathy, but with a warmth to it, a tone that curls in your ears and makes the hairs on your arm rise like startled hedgehogs. You play a little melody. 3 notes repeated, then reversed. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it makes a squirrel dance. You laugh. It's too early in the day for anything to make sense. Then the bees arrive. Not in a swarm, thankfully. Just a few bumbling around the edges of the clearing like they forgot what they came for. One lands on your foot. You freeze. It sniffs you. Yes, sniffs. Then flies off like you weren't even interesting enough to sting. Rude. You remember the beehive from yesterday. The one your arm accidentally jostled as you tried to leap over a bush and dramatically failed. That hive is visible now just over the ridge tucked into a hollow tree. A slow trickle of bees moves in and out businesslike. Your stomach growls. Your pride says no, but your hunger says maybe you could just peek at that hive. Just observe it. Respectfully. That's when the brambles get involved. You try to approach the hive with the grace of a woodland spirit. What happens instead is a clumsy ballet involving a root-a-trip and a face full of bramble thorns. You yelp. The bees notice. One buzzes a little too close to your ear. You backpedal, tripping again, and crash into a muddy patch of reeds that sighs under your weight like it's had enough of your nonsense. You lie there, face pressed to the earth, arms spread like you've just auditioned for a tragic myth and nailed the death scene. A bee lands on your nose. You cross your eyes to look at it. Morning, you whisper. It leaves. Eventually, you peel yourself upright, grab your reed instrument, now slightly dented, and limp back to the stream. You wash off mud, clean out a cut on your elbow, and splash your face. The cold water jolts you back to something like clarity. Not intelligence, mind you, but something resembling awareness. Sitting on a stone, you examine your flute thing. It's warped now. One of the reeds cracked during your tumble. You try blowing into it. The note is off, wobbly like a duck that's also crying. But interesting. You press your lips to another reed, and this one still sings. Not as clearly as before, but there's something new there. Texture. Breath and tone tangled together like wind through feathers. You tweak the angle, adjust the spacing. Blow again. The new sound is richer. Not better exactly, but deeper. Historians still argue whether ancient flutes were discovered intentionally or stumbled upon by sheer accident. Some say a bored shepherd idly poked a hollow bone. Others believe it began with wind rushing through caves, whispering notes too eerie to ignore. Your version. It involves mud bees and a goat with commitment issues. You play again, softer now, and the melody drifts. It catches the edge of the breeze and floats across the clearing. A bird echoes the tune. A frog contributes rather unhelpfully with a single blorp. And you smile. This isn't about perfection. It's not about applause or Olympus or any of the gods who are definitely not paying attention. It's just sound. Beautiful, accidental sound. You lie back on the rock, staring at the canopy above sunlight trickling through branches, dappling your tunic with gold. You hum along with your flute, letting the reeds rest against your chest like a sleepy cat. Your fingers start to itch. Not in a bad way, in a curious way. You want to make another one, a better one that doesn't squeak quite so much or smell like swamp. You gather reeds carefully this time. No more face plants. You sort them by length, inspecting each one like a jeweler examining gemstones. You trim. You bind. You arrange them by size from longest to shortest. You blow across the top edge again, sideways this time. And what comes out? Music. Wobbly, uncertain, but undeniably music. Notes that rise and fall, that shift and sway like leaves in the breeze. You don't have a name for it yet. You don't even know if it's a real instrument. But you know one thing. You want to hear more. So you play. All morning into the afternoon until your fingers are sticky with sap and your lips are dry from blowing. You hum, whistle, and tinker until your breath becomes rhythm. Until the clearing knows your song. It's not just reeds anymore. It's a voice. Yours. And though you don't realize it yet, somewhere far away on a wind-swept hill or beside a dusty trade road, a shepherd hears the notes drifting on the wind and turns their head curious. Your music has taken flight. by the time the sun tips westward, staining the sky with apricot and soft plum, you've officially lost track of the day. Your stomach grumbles every few minutes, your hands are smeared with green, and your knees look like they wrestled a frog and lost. But your bundle of reeds, it's shaping up into something oddly special. You sit cross-legged now, nestled between ferns, eyes half-lidded from the sheer focus of it all. Your newest version of the reed flute rests in your lap, tied gently together with a bit of string you found tangled in your belt. It's not just a bunch of sticks anymore. It's beginning to look like a real instrument, symmetrical, satisfying, even elegant in a scrappy, forest-born kind of way. You raise it to your lips and blow. The sound isn't perfect, not even close. It warbles on the low end and squeaks when you try to push it too hard. But there's something about the rise and fall of the notes that tugs at the edge of your memory. It's like a lullaby your mother hummed once, or a breeze through mountain passes, soft and distant. As you play the forest around, you begins to respond. Birds chirp quieter. The breeze hushes a little. Even the insects seem to pause their constant hum, tapering off like an audience settling into their seats. You don't notice it at first, you're too busy squinting down the length of your reeds, adjusting tiny cuts with a small stone blade. But then a voice speaks. You trying to charm the moss off the rocks, or just the frogs. You jump. A figure leans against a twisted olive tree, arms crossed. She's dressed in layers of trailing green like leaves caught in motion. Her hair is wild, darker than midnight, with bits of twig still stuck in it like she styled herself during a windstorm. You know her face. Or you think you do. It's familiar in the way the moon is familiar, something you've always known without understanding why. Echo, the nymph of repetition, the mistress of mimicry. She's known for only speaking in reflections in the final words of others, but today, oddly, she's speaking first. Probably because you look so pathetic. You try to look dignified, brushing dirt from your tunic. It's an instrument, you say. She tilts her head. It's a bundle of weeds. You hold it up with pride. A musical bundle of weeds. She steps closer, eyeing it. Play it again, then. Convince me. You hesitate because suddenly performing feels different. Like when your cousin asked you to dance in front of the whole village and you accidentally stepped on a chicken. But still, you raise the flute, steady your breath, and blow. The melody wavers, but it's not bad. You shift from a soft three-note run into something more ambitious, adding in a fourth reed, sliding your breath to create a kind of ripple. You glance at her. She blinks. Again. You play it again. Slower. You slow it down. She says again, stepping around you, circling like a cat, deciding whether to nap on your chest or destroy your couch. Not terrible. High praise, you mutter. She stops. Try that third note again, but from your throat, not your lungs. You blink. I don't do it. You do it. And somehow it works. The note doesn't just rise, it floats, as if it's less a sound and more a feeling. Echo smiles. Better, she says. Still rough, but better. You're starting to suspect this nymph may have missed her calling as a very intimidating music teacher. Over the next hour, she sits beside you cross-legged in the grass, guiding your breath, your tone, even the way you hold your jaw. You never realized how much technique was involved. Echo doesn't praise exactly, but when you get something right, she nods. And somehow that's enough. You ask, "Have you ever heard anything like this before?" She doesn't answer right away. Then she says, "Once, a long time ago. A man in the north, he carved bone flutes, played in the snow for wolves." You blink. "Wolves loved it," she says. danced in circles. One tried to harmonize. It was not good. You grin. So, not the first to make music from weird things. Definitely not. But maybe the first to do it because of a goat and a bramble patch. Fair. You play a few more notes, working them into a pattern of phrase. Something close to a tune now. Echo hums along her voice, soft, ethereal. She doesn't sing words, just carries the sound. Historians still argue whether instruments like the pan flute evolved purely from practical experimentation, or if they were inspired by deeper ritualistic needs, calls to gods, to weather, to ancestors. But here in the grass with your lips pressed to reeds, and a forest spirit humming beside you, it feels like both. Eventually, Echo stands. Keep practicing, she says, brushing dirt from her knees. You've got a voice in there somewhere. Might even be worth listening to. You open your mouth to say thank you, but she vanishes behind the tree before you can. Classic. You sit in silence for a while, the last notes still echoing, no pun intended, between the trees. You wonder how many other forgotten glades, lonely wanderers, and bored shepherds are also discovering music in strange places. You wonder if Echo visits all of them. You pluck another reed, trim it, blow softly. This time the note is clear. The goat doesn't return, which is probably for the best. By the next morning, your camp has transformed into a full-blown mess of reeds twine, carved bark shavings, and half-eaten figs. You wake up with a flute in one hand and a pebble wedged in your back like nature's cruel chiropractor. The sun is just peeking over the canopy, sending shafts of gold through the leaves, and something about the air feels charged, like it's waiting for a new note, a new sound. And you oblige. You sit up, rub the sleep from your eyes, and bring yesterday's flute to your lips. This one has 7 reeds each, trimmed with meticulous care, and labeled in your head with descriptive names like a, oof, and yes. You blow. The melody wobbles but holds. You slide into a new run of notes faster now, less cautious. Your fingers twitch like they know something you don't. This is it. This is progress. Of course, it's also the moment you're discovered. Oi, you swamp thing, you freeze. Then squint. Across the clearing, standing at the edge of a fern-draped path, is a boy about your age. Maybe a few years younger, with wild curls, a sheepish smile, and enough freckles to make a constellation. He's got a satchel slung over one shoulder, and a sprig of something vaguely edible sticking out of his mouth like a lazy goat. Thought I was the only one who wandered this far? He says, stepping closer. You live out here, or just really bad at directions. You lower your flute. A little of both. He plops down next to you like you're already friends. I'm Theo. I herd sheep, except when I don't. Great resume, you say, a little dazed. Theo points at your bundle of reeds. You play that thing or just blow into it until birds fall out of the sky. You pause. Then play a short phrase, one of the patterns Echo helped you refine yesterday. It's soft, simple, but undeniably melodic. Theo whistles. Not bad for a pile of sticks. You should be annoyed, but instead you laugh. Theo reaches into his satchel and pulls out, wait for it, a lump of cheese, a hunk of bread, and what appears to be a slightly smooshed pomegranate. He offers you half. You accept without hesitation. Your last meal was technically a handful of dandelion stems you tried to convince yourself were foraged greens. As you eat, Theo watches you rebuild your flute. He's curious, asking questions with a kind of eager awe. Where'd you learn to make that? Do you think it could call deer? Could you use it to signal someone from really far away, like from the next hill. You shrug between bites. Just started messing around. It sort of happened. He picks up a discarded reed and peers through it like a telescope. Bet you could make one longer. Get a deeper sound, like thunder but friendly. You pause. That's actually not a terrible idea. Of course it's not. I have very important sheep-related thoughts. Over the next few hours, Theo stays. He hands you reeds, holds things in place while you tie bindings. Tests tones with his own breath, then dramatically collapses when they squeak. He suggests names for your flutes, terrible names, like Windy McBlowface and the Puffinator. You don't stop laughing. Somewhere in that laughter, a new flute is born. Longer, heavier with 2 extra reeds on one end and a gently curved angle to improve airflow. The first sound it makes is so low and rich it startles a dove out of a tree. Theo's eyes widen. That sounded like music you'd play at a funeral, but like a really cool funeral. You play it again, slower. You experiment with breath control, inhale, deep, release, soft. The notes roll like waves. There's depth now, something mournful and ancient buried inside the sound. Historians still argue whether early instruments were strictly celebratory or if they also carried grief, longing, and memory. But sitting here between a sarcastic shepherd and a pile of chewed bread crusts, it's clear this instrument can do both. Theo starts humming along. It's off-key, loud, obnoxious. You join him anyway. The sun is high now, cutting hard light across the clearing. Shadows dance as the wind picks up. You lift the new flute once more and let the melody shift again, higher this time. Playful, chasing the breeze. You don't know it yet, but this version, the long reed with the softened bend, will someday become the prototype that artisans across the mountains begin to copy. It'll be passed to traders, bards, and bored kids with too much time on their hands. It will outlast your name. But that's later. For now, Theo grabs 2 stones and starts drumming a rhythm. You sync up without even thinking. The clearing fills with a full sound beat tone motion. Even the trees seem to sway. Your body moves. A kind of dancing, or at least something that would horrify your grandmother. But it feels right. Organic. Like you're not just making music, you are music. Living and breathing it note by note. Theo stops drumming. You think the gods are listening? You shrug. If they are, I hope they're dancing. He nods, solemn, or at least mildly entertained. You both collapse back onto the grass, panting, laughing, staring up at the canopy. I think you invented something, Theo says. You glance at your flute. I think I accidentally invented something. Same difference, he says, tossing a pomegranate seed at a squirrel. The squirrel glares at him. Later, as the sky turns indigo and the crickets begin their nightly complaints, Theo stands. I should go. Sheep don't hurt themselves. You nod. Come back tomorrow, obviously. I need to see if you invent a clarinet. He disappears into the trees. You lie back, flute resting on your chest heart, still thudding with rhythm. Your fingers twitch, itching to build again. To play again. To discover what other voices are hidden in these reeds. The music isn't finished. Not even close. The next morning, you're already awake when the birds begin their usual arguments. Your fingers ache from carving, your arms are speckled with splinters, and you've somehow acquired a blister in a place no human should write between your toes. And yet, you smile. Because your reed pile has doubled. Theo kept his word. At some ungodly hour while you were still snoring into a bundle of moss, he snuck in like a woodland raccoon and dropped off a stack of reeds so enormous it looks like you've robbed a papyrus merchant. Some are tall and thick like bamboo. Others are thin and flexible, like they were raised by ballet instructors. A note pinned to the pile with an actual fishbone for some reason reads, "For your wind wizardry. P.S. One of these reeds had a spider. I named him Greg. Watch out for Greg. Charming. You get to work. And by get to work, you mean you sit cross-legged for a while holding one reed after another, up to your face, muttering, 'Too squeaky, too bendy.' And once, 'Why does this one smell like goats?' Then you find it. The perfect reed. Thick, sturdy, with a natural taper that promises a deep, mellow tone. You trim it carefully, smoothing the edges with your favorite stone. You've named it Blady, and begin to test cuts. You're going for precision now, not just random holes or hopeful hacks, but carefully placed openings that shift tone and airflow. And with every slight adjustment, a different note sings out. The sound is evolving. More layered, less buzz, more hum. The musical voice of the flute is no longer shouting, it's whispering, coaxing emotion instead of just noise. Historians still argue whether early tuning methods were mathematical or entirely instinctual. Some claim ancient musicians used ratios based on strings and water displacement. Others believe they just fiddled with things until they stopped sounding awful. You are, without question, the second kind. And it's working. As you fine-tune your newest creation, let's call it Flute Prime. Theo returns munching a pear and looking far too pleased with himself. Greg says hi. He announces, setting down another bundle of reeds. Tell Greg he's not invited. You mutter, carving out a second tone hole. Also, I figured out how to make the lower notes resonate better. Theo sits beside you. Really, sort of. I blow harder and pray. He watches as you demonstrate. The note you produce isn't just sound, it feels like something. It vibrates in your chest, tickling your ribs. You hold the tone, then shift, opening the next hole in sequence. A new note rises to meet it, and for a fleeting second, there's harmony. Theo's mouth drops. Whoa! You keep playing, exploring combinations. The melody is still rough, but now it's music. Actual music. You can feel it filling the space between the trees, drawing invisible shapes in the air. A squirrel pauses mid-climb just to listen. Then Theo does something unexpected. He starts singing. Not well, not even close. His pitch bounces like a goat on a trampoline, and he has the breath control of a panting dog. But he means it. He makes up lyrics on the spot, something about flutes of glory and windy spells of destiny, and you're laughing so hard you nearly drop the instrument. Still, you keep playing. Something stirs. Not in you. Not in Theo. In the woods. The trees go quiet. The wind stalls. A soft crackle runs through the underbrush, and you pause, ears perked. Theo freezes too mid-lyric. A shadow moves. Out from behind a large tree steps a man. No, a presence. His beard is wild, streaked with what might be tree sap. His cloak is made from stitched-together animal pelts, and his staff is topped with something that looks suspiciously like a beehive. The Druid. You've heard about them, of course, mystics of the groves, guardians of natural lore, and owners of way too many necklaces made from teeth. This one doesn't speak right away. He simply stares. At you. At the flute. And then, finally, in a voice like bark cracking under snow, he says, "You summoned me." You blink. What? Theo whispers. Did the flute come with a summon a druid setting? The druid steps closer. I heard the melody, the call, the breath of reeds through hollow bone. He kneels surprisingly gracefully for a man who probably hasn't bathed since spring. and examines your instrument with gentle fingers. This is not a toy. You clear your throat. No, it's a sort of, oops, I invented this thing. He lifts the flute to his lips and blows. The sound that emerges is transcendent. Not louder, not clearer, but older. Like the reed remembers things you don't. A flood of warmth ripples through the clearing, and you swear you see the leaves shimmer not from wind, but from resonance. When he lowers the flute, the druid nods. The spirit of Pan watches. You freeze. Pan, like Pan, goat, legs, woodsy chaos, flirts with clouds, the same. His eyes narrow. And this flute, it carries his breath, even if you didn't mean to make it so. Theo leans over. That's either very cool or very cursed. Both, probably. The druid tells you more how the god Pan once chased a nymph named Syrinx, who turned herself into reeds to escape. How Pan, heartbroken and not very respectful of personal boundaries, cut those reeds and fashioned the first pan flute. He called it his Syrinx in her honor, or in a move of mythological guilt, who knows. You stare at your own flute. The similarities are unsettling. The druid adds one final warning. Instruments born of chaos and emotion carry power. If you keep playing, you may draw more than just shepherds and squirrels. Then he turns, walks into the woods, doesn't even say goodbye. Theo exhales. Well, that wasn't terrifying at all. You stare at the reeds in your hand, the pan flute, invented by accident, echoed by myth, touched by gods. You don't know where this is going, but it's already far, far bigger than you. And it all started because you fell down a hill chasing a goat. You don't touch the flute for the rest of the day. Not because you're scared exactly, but because now every reed feels heavier. Charged. Like holding a lightning bug with its own opinions. You keep glancing at the forest line, half expecting the druid to reappear with a sack of glowing mushrooms and more unsolicited prophecies. Theo doesn't help. He spends the afternoon dramatically narrating everything you do in a wizard voice. And now he intones, poking a stick in your direction. The chosen one sharpens his sacred reeds, not knowing that the next note might open a portal, or just mildly annoy a squirrel. You throw a pebble at him. He catches it with his forehead. Eventually, hunger wins, and you both migrate to the nearest fig tree. As you eat, you go quiet. Something about the druid's story lingers in your chest. The idea that Pan, the half-goat god of the wild, created the first Syrinx to mourn a love lost, that he poured his longing into sound echoes. Your own process, doesn't it? You weren't chasing a nymph or crafting an ode to heartbreak. You were bored, curious, a little lonely. And somehow that was enough. Historians still argue whether myths like Pan's were created to explain natural phenomena, or whether they masked deeper cultural metaphors, emotional truths wrapped in goat-themed weirdness. But sitting here sticky with fig juice and pondering divine flute making, you realize myth and music might be closer than they seem. Do you think Pan's real, you ask Theo? He shrugs. Real enough that a beehive staff guy showed up quoting him. Fair point. After lunch, you drift back to your crafting spot. You pick up Flute Prime again. It doesn't hum ominously or glow with hidden symbols, which is either a relief or a disappointment. Still, your hands feel more deliberate now, like they understand the weight of what they're making. So, you build. You take the finest reeds from Theo's bundle, sort them by thickness and length, then bind them together side by side. No mouthpiece, no fussy tuning pegs, just hollow tubes aligned in a gentle curve lashed together with twine and wax. It takes hours. Theo naps. Greg, the spider, returns. You pretend not to see him. By sunset, the instrument is complete. This isn't a single pipe anymore. This is a pan flute. One breath can now coax multiple notes, high, low melancholy, bright. You bring it to your lips, inhale deep, and blow. The sound rises like a spell. Not clunky or chaotic this time. It flows, a ripple of tones, each one chasing the next like birds in formation. You shift your mouth slightly, and the melody hops across the reeds with precision and grace. You're no longer making noise. You're playing. Theo sits up so fast he gets a leaf stuck in his hair. That sounded like an actual song. You play again, slower now. It's haunting, echoing. A tune that makes the evening cicadas pause in confusion. A tune that tugs on something behind your ribs. Even Theo shuts up. That's when you know it's serious. You close your eyes and play once more long, careful notes stitched together like dreams. This time, something answers. A distant sound. Soft, but unmistakable. Another flute. You freeze. Theo looks around. Please tell me that's not Greg's new hobby. The music comes again, faint, ethereal, and weirdly in sync with your last notes. You play 3 tones. It repeats them. You play a short phrase. It adds harmony. Somewhere, someone is answering you. You and Theo scramble to your feet. You keep playing your pan flute, guiding the rhythm like a beacon. The reply comes again, closer this time. It's not an echo. It's another musician. You charge through the underbrush leaves, slapping your legs, and reeds clutched like a wizard's staff. Theo follows muttering about cursed melodies and possibly haunted ducks. Then you see them. A girl your age, maybe a bit older, perched on a flat rock by a stream. She's holding her own flute made from smooth, ivory-colored bone. It's not a pan flute, but a straight pipe with delicate engravings. She looks up surprised, but not afraid. You're the one with the reed calls, she says. Her voice is soft but certain. You nod, panting. You answered me. She smiles, then gestures to her instrument. How could I not? You're making music like the old gods. Theo raises a hand. Hi, I'm the one who names spiders. Just for context. She chuckles and introduces herself as Larka. She explains that she's from a nomadic tribe that moves with the rivers, and her people have played flutes for generations, bone, clay, even driftwood. But a pan flute. That's new. Never seen one with that layout, she says, examining your creation with reverence. It's like a chorus in one breath. You sit beside her and offer it over. She tries it, and with her skill, the sound becomes something else entirely. Clean, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Larka plays a scale you didn't even realize existed. Together, you trade songs well into the evening. Her bone flute weaves through your reed tones like vines on a trellis. Sometimes she leads. Sometimes you do. But together the sound is fuller, like 2 languages learning to rhyme. Theo lays back hands behind his head. I feel like I should be charging people for this concert. At one point, Larka pauses, tilts her head, and says, "You know what this needs? You and Theo wait. A drum." You look at Theo. He looks at a nearby log. 15 minutes later, he has strapped 2 hollowed gourds to his knees and is tapping out a beat like he was born in a parade. It's uneven, too fast at times, but it works. You're no longer just musicians. You're a band. The stream gurgles beside you. Fireflies blink into the air like blinking stars, and the 3 of you play on flute, pan, flute, gourd, drum into the slow descent of night. It's magic. Not the kind with wands and sparkles, the older kind. The kind that weaves people together with nothing but air, rhythm, and breath. As the first owl calls, you stop. Larka hands back the pan flute. this isn't just music, it's invitation. To what Theo asks, she smiles. To the rest of the world. You don't fully understand what she means. Not yet, but the feeling curls in your chest like a secret waiting to be unwrapped. Your music is no longer a lonely invention. It's a beginning. You don't sleep much that night. Larka leaves before the stars peak, slipping away with the grace of someone used to moonlight paths. She doesn't say goodbye exactly, just taps her flute against yours with a quiet, "See you soon," and vanishes upstream like a note fading on the wind. Theo, of course, snores like a warthog in a wool blanket. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling of stars pan flute, clutched to your chest like a weird, reed-wrapped teddy bear. The music won't leave you alone. Melodies keep playing themselves in your head. New ones, wild, urgent, half-dreamt. There's a restlessness humming under your ribs, a sense that you've cracked open something ancient, and now it wants more. When dawn breaks, you're already up and testing new reeds. This time, you experiment with variations. Curves, lengths. You try stacking the reeds into 2 rows instead of 1. You test one tuned entirely to a minor scale. It sounds like heartbreak with a hint of witchcraft. Another is all high notes, which Theo immediately dubs the Mosquito Summoner. By midday, you've built 4 new flutes. Each one feels different. Not just in sound, but in mood. One mournful, one playful, one intense. One a little chaotic. It plays different notes each time you blow, like it's offended by structure. Theo suggests calling it jazz. You keep going. By the time the sun sets, your camp looks like a flute bazaar. Reed scraps everywhere, bundles tied with string bees, hovering suspiciously near the wax you've been melting for binding. It smells like creativity and slight panic. And you realize something: this isn't just invention anymore. It's obsession. Historians still argue whether early musical revolutions happened in bursts of inspiration or evolved slowly over time. Some believe instruments like the pan flute spread from a single innovator to entire cultures. Others insist it was simultaneous evolution. Different people in different places discovering music in similar ways. Like how octopuses and humans both figured out problem-solving despite being evolutionary cousins about as close as toast and a toaster. You apparently are toast, because now you can't stop. That night, Theo, after chewing on an overripe pear with the grace of a swamp ferret, suggests something radical. Why don't you try performing? You frown. Performing for what, the local rabbit community? No, like, for real. People. Trade, travelers, herders, maybe even the old stone market in the valley. You play, they drop jaw, you get snacks. You think about it. You've never considered music as something to give. It's always been private, personal, like a journal, but louder. But what if the druid was right? What if the music is more than just sound? What if it's a signal? You pack a bag the next morning. Theo insists on coming along naturally. I'm your manager/drummer/bodyguard, he says, spinning one of his gourd drums like a pizza. Also, I'm really good at bartering. Watch this. He walks up to a woman selling figs, compliments her hair, and walks away with 3 figs and a date pastry. Witchcraft, you mutter. You head toward the Market Valley flutes, bundled in cloth nerves wrapped around your stomach like clingy vines. The walk is long, but familiar rocky paths startled birds, old footbridges that creak just enough to ruin your trust in physics. You play as you walk, testing melodies against the wind. Some birds chirp back. One goat bleats angrily. You decide to leave that note out next time. By noon, the marketplace appears like a dream filtered through dust and shouting. Stone stalls line the outer ring. Traders wave painted fabrics, polished stones, leather pouches, mysterious roots that may or may not be edible. There's a guy selling lizard teeth, and another selling the illusion of lizard teeth its rice. You find a spot near the edge of a pottery stand and unpack your flutes. You don't have a sign. You don't need one. You just breathe and play. It starts slow. A few notes. Tentative. Like walking into a room where people already expect you to be interesting. But the sound carries. The pan flute rises above the market noise like a breeze threading through fabric. People turn, then pause, then gather. You keep going. You play the melancholy tune first, the one that sounds like memory and wood smoke. A woman selling wool clutches her shawl and closes her eyes. You shift into a lighter piece one Larka had helped shape with her flute. It dances across the stalls, curling toes and tapping fingers. Even the guy with the fake lizard teeth stops hawking to sway a little. Theo joins in tapping his gourd drums with surprising finesse. You two lock into rhythm. He winks. Told you I had talent. Also, we're being watched. You glance up. A tall man in a fur-lined vest is standing across the square arms-folded expression, unreadable. He's not just watching, he's studying. Every note, every movement. You finish your set ending on a chord that vibrates longer than it should. The man approaches. He introduces himself as Marek, a traveler, a music collector, and apparently a bit of a flute enthusiast. This sound, he says, pointing at your pan flute, isn't from around here. You shrug. It's not really from anywhere. I kind of made it. Marek's eyes light up. You invented it. Theo jumps in. We invented it. I provided logistical and moral support. Marek asks questions. Lots of them. About how it's made. What reeds you used. How you tuned it. Whether it was influenced by any specific tradition. You give him the honest answer. Nope. I fell down a hill and made noises until they sounded good. He laughs. You've stumbled into something ancient. This is Pan's breath reborn. You blink. You know the Pan story too. Marek nods. He's in 100 legends across a dozen valleys. Not always a god, sometimes a beast. Sometimes a boy with horns who teaches animals how to dance. He steps closer. If you're willing, I'd like to show your instrument to a few people. Wanderers, bards, scholars. There's something in your music we've all been waiting for. You hesitate. It feels like letting go. But Theo nudges you. Come on. When destiny knocks, you don't keep whittling alone in the bushes. You hand Marek one of your pan flutes, the cleanest build, the one that first played the melody that summoned the druid. He cradles it like it's glass. As he walks off, the marketplace returns to noise. But under it, you feel something new. Momentum. You're no longer the only one holding this music. You're no longer the only one who hears it. And you have a feeling Pan, wherever he is smiling under his crooked horns. The next few days are a blur of walking, playing, and dodging whatever Theo claims is definitely an enchanted squirrel. You head deeper into unfamiliar lands, following winding paths, Marek scribbled onto a piece of bark with charcoal. Apparently, he's part of a loose guild of roving musicians and lore keepers. The Whisper Circle, he called it, like a name made up by someone very dramatic and very bored. You're intrigued. Also mildly concerned. Is it a cult? Theo snorts. Only if they have robes. Or a theme song. You're not sure what to expect when you reach the next gathering point, a forest glade flanked by standing stones and an old olive tree that seems too big to be real. But the moment you step into the clearing, the air changes. It smells like firewood and wild mint. And everywhere you look, there are instruments. Not just flutes, there are stringed things shaped like half-moons, drums with stretched fish skin pipes carved from obsidian, even a guy playing water-filled gourds that burble like an amphibious kazoo. Around 20 people sit in a loose circle, either tuning building or softly playing. No one claps. No one introduces themselves. It's like stepping into a dream run by introverts. You edge toward the edge of the circle. No one looks up, but a spot opens next to a woman sanding down a chunk of driftwood. You sit. Slowly. Respectfully. Theo, of course, plops down like he owns the grass and immediately starts whispering. You think they have snacks, I smell turnips. You hush him. Then, without any cue, you can hear the music begins. It's not coordinated. Not in a traditional sense, but it weaves together like it knows how to behave. Soft percussion from the far side joins a slow, moaning string note. A man with braided hair breathes into a bone flute, and the tone curls like smoke around the other sounds. You lift your pan flute. And play. Just a few notes. Tentative. The woman beside you nods without looking. Her carving hand slows. Someone across the circle adjusts their tempo to meet your rhythm. The music adjusts to you like an animal sniffing your scent, curious. It's beautiful. Historians still argue whether ancient music circles were spiritual rituals or just bored humans trying to impress each other with their hollow bird bones. But sitting here, you feel the ancientness of it, like you're part of a heartbeat older than your bones. After a while, the circle fades into silence. One by one, instruments quiet. Then the woman beside you turns. You built that, you nod. Never seen one like it. Sounded like river wind. You smile. That's what I was going for. River wind with mild emotional damage. She actually laughs. I'm Kess. I specialize in wood resonance. That flute of yours, it bends air in a way we haven't recorded before. Theo leans in. You record air, figure of speech. Kess replies unfazed. We map vibrations. Share them. Compare instruments across regions. Try to keep track of how sound evolves. You glance around at the others. Some are tinkering with mouthpieces or drawing patterns on parchment. One guy is blowing into a seashell and making notes on a clay tablet. So this is like a music research guild. We call ourselves Echo Keepers, Kess explains. Some of us are players, others builders, all of us listeners. Theo blinks. So, basically, nerds. No, Kess says with a grin. Very patient nerds. That night, the Echo Keepers build a fire and gather for what they call a tone exchange. Everyone takes turns introducing a sound, just a sound, not a song. One woman plays a 3-beat rhythm on a hollow log, then explains how it matches the footsteps of elephants during migration. Another blows through a horn that sounds like a wolf calling underwater. A boy whistles through his cupped palms and reveals the pitch matches an owl's warning call. When it's your turn, you step into the firelight and hold up the pan flute. You play a short melody, the one Larka helped shape the notes bouncing upward like skipping stones. When you finish, silence follows. Then someone says, "That." Felt like it knew what I was feeling. You shrug, heart pounding. I just followed the breath. A woman named Sarah leans forward, intrigued. What tuning did you use? You blink. I kind of guessed. Guessed, Theo jumps in. It's his superpower. That and surviving near-death fruit experiences. Sarah starts asking questions, note. Spacing, reed thickness, curvature, airflow, resistance. You do your best, though. Half your answers are variations of, I don't know, it just felt right. Kes intervenes. Let him breathe. The instrument speaks for itself. And it does. You pass it around. Each keeper plays it differently, some soft and cautious, others with wild improvisation. But it adapts. It's like the flute isn't just an object, it's a mirror. Later, as embers glow and everyone settles into blankets and song fragments, Sarah says something that sticks. This flute of yours, it's a bridge. You ask a bridge to what she thinks a moment, to sound that doesn't exist yet. You're inventing something new. You lie back on your blanket eyes, tracing constellations. Theo is asleep, curled like a very judgmental cat. Around you the forest sighs, and in your hands rests a creation that wasn't meant to matter, but now apparently does. You're not a musician. You're not even a craftsman. But you're a sound pioneer, and the world is starting to listen. Morning finds you with pine needles in your hair and one of Sarah's tuning forks poking your ribs. You sit up groggy, blinking against the sunlight, slanting through the trees like golden spears, and groan softly. Theo, of course, is already awake and arguing with a squirrel over a piece of dried mango. The squirrel is winning. You pat your pocket to make sure your flute is still there. It is, and rise to find Sarah and Kes crouched over a flat stone drawing what looks suspiciously like musical math. You peek over their shoulders. You're mapping the scale. Kes nods. We've been trying to document new tonal systems for years. What you brought this instrument, it fits, but also doesn't. The spacing is uneven. Intentionally uneven. You blink. Well, not intentionally. I just look I had wet moss in my ears when I cut those first reeds. I eyeballed it. Sarah grins. That explains a lot, but somehow it still resonates. That shouldn't be possible. Theo leans in. So either he's a genius, or his flute is cursed. Kes says we're still testing both theories. You spend the rest of the morning immersed in sound experiments. They have you blow into the pan flute while Sarah strikes tuning bowls to compare harmonics. Kes runs her fingers along the reed edges, listening for micro vibrations. It's part science, part sorcery, and all slightly over your head. But it feels important. One of the keepers, an older man named Darrell, who wears bells around his ankles and smells faintly of honey and ash, steps in mid-test with a thoughtful expression. We should take this to the archive. The others look up surprised. The archive, Sarah repeats. Isn't that, well, closed? Kes finishes. For years. Darrell nods. Yes, but it was meant for this. For sound that changes things. We may have found the next shift. You glance at Theo, who whispers, So, do we get robes now? Turns out the archive isn't a building. Not exactly. It's a place hidden somewhere beyond the Whispering Ridge, accessible only after you pass through something called the Hollow Chorus, which sounds like a rock band or a terrifying medieval obstacle course. You try to back out, but Sarah's already packing a map and waxed paper bundles of dried ginger. Kes says it plainly. You want to understand your flute. The archive is where you go. So, off you go. Again. Theo, of course, is thrilled. We're on a quest like real heroes, with snacks and everything. You eye the path ahead. What are the odds it doesn't involve cliffs, snakes, or mysterious fog? Theo doesn't answer, just grins. The journey to the Hollow Chorus is, well, weird. First, you pass through a forest where every tree creaks at exactly the same pitch when the wind blows. Kes calls it the Harmony Grove. Some say ancient monks tuned the entire forest to a single note. Others claim it happened naturally, the trees growing to match the wind's whisper over centuries. Historians still argue whether nature can harmonize like that or if the monks had too much free time and not enough supervision. Then there's the bog of whistling stones. Theo falls in twice, and each time the stones make an unsettling ooh-wee-oo sound, like they're judging his choices. You try not to laugh. Much. When you finally reach the hollow chorus, it lives up to its name. It's a narrow ravine carved between two cliffs, and the wind that rushes through it sings. Not just any sound. Voices, echoes, snippets of melodies, entire songs layered like an invisible choir. You pause at the edge, hairs on your arms lifting. This is eerie, you whisper. Sarah explains softly. The wind here catches pieces of every sound that's ever passed through. A living memory. Some say Pan himself sang here. You glance at your flute. Of course he did. Crossing the hollow chorus is a trial of patience. Every step you take echoes in strange ways. Your flute hums in your bag without you touching it. Theo starts hearing what he swears is someone saying his name over and over in a sarcastic tone. You tell him that's probably just the universe catching on. Eventually, after what feels like walking through someone else's dream, you reach the far side. And there, nestled in a dip between three hills, is the archive. It's not a grand fortress. No stone towers or glowing runes. Just a circle of enormous weathered shells, half buried in moss, giant ancient spiral forms, like the homes of long-dead sea creatures. Each one hums faintly, like it remembers lullabies sung in forgotten tides. This, Sarah says quietly, is where we keep the songs too old to be sung. You step closer. One shell is cracked open just enough to let you slip inside. Inside, it's warm. Echoes bounce in soft spirals. The walls shimmer with carvings, musical notations, flute diagrams, poems shaped like waveforms. In the center is a basin filled with still water. Sarah gestures. Play. Let the archive hear. You pull out your flute. Your hands shake a little. Not from fear, but from weight. This moment feels like the center of something. Like this is where the scattered notes of your strange invention finally come home. You breathe in and play. The notes rise, bend, stretch. The walls shimmer. The water quivers. And somewhere in the vibration you hear something answer back, not in words, but in harmony. It's not just an echo, it's a response. When you finish, the silence that follows feels sacred. Darrell speaks from the doorway. It knows you. You exhale, knees weak. What? What does that mean? Kes joins him. It means you didn't just make a flute. You revived something ancient, something that was waiting. Outside, the wind shifts. A melody, faint and low, coils through the air. Not yours, not Theo's, but familiar. You step out of the archive shell and look toward the hills. A single note drifts down like a whisper through reeds. Someone's calling you. The note echoes again, long, low, and just slightly off-kilter, like it's traveled a very strange road to find you. You freeze. Sarah tilts her head, brow furrowed. That's not one of ours. Kes is already on her feet, eyes scanning the horizon. It's not a bird call either. It's constructed. Darrell steps forward, slow and careful. That tone, I've heard it once before. On the day of hollow winds. Theo raises an eyebrow. That's either a weather event or the worst folk holiday ever. But no one laughs. Sarah looks uneasy. The day of hollow winds is when instruments, flutes, horns, even gourds began making sounds on their own. Out of nowhere. A few snapped. One burst into flames. You blink. And no one thought to write a warning label. Historians still argue whether it was a climactic anomaly or Something else, Darrell mutters, gaze distant. But it happened again, 2 decades later, and each time one new sound emerged, one that no known system could explain. Kes looks directly at you. I think your flute is calling something, or being called. You glance down at it. It's warm, slightly humming. Your stomach flips like you've swallowed a dragonfly that isn't thrilled to be there. Theo, less concerned with mystical omens, casually starts unpacking the snack satchel. So, what now? We wait for the flute to answer its evil twin. No, Sarah says softly. We follow it. The echo keepers begin packing, quick and efficient. You grab your things, heart pounding like a badly tuned drum. The tone continues faint but persistent, drawing you toward the northern ridge. As you climb, the landscape changes. The trees get shorter, the wind sharper. The ground beneath your feet starts to feel less like soil and more like old bone. At one point, you step on what you think is a flat rock, but it rings deep and metallic. Sarah kneels, brushing away the moss. It's a bell plate. Massive. Buried. Theo taps it. Either a musical grave or someone lost a really big dinner gong. Sarah draws in a breath. This is pre-collapse. Some say these plate fields were part of Resonance Farm's acoustic zones that harnessed sound for, well, no one really knows. Healing weather warfare. Historians still argue whether they were spiritual tools or sonic weapons. Darrell adds, tracing a faded etching that looks suspiciously like an ancient tuning fork doing a high kick. You continue onward, the landscape now full of these buried bell tones. Every footfall becomes part of a song you didn't mean to play. Your flute continues to hum in response like a compass made of breath. And then you see it. Atop a small rise half buried in dust and grass is another pan flute. But it's wrong. Made of stone, not reed. Jagged, uneven pipes jutting at impossible angles, and it's massive, nearly your height, leaning crookedly against a shattered pillar that may have once been a sound tower. You approach slowly. It lets out a single note as you draw near, soft, eerie like wind moving through broken teeth. Your own flute quivers in your hand as if recognizing something ancient and not entirely welcome. You turn to Sarah. Is this a flute? She squints. Looks like it, but I've never seen one in stone. It shouldn't even be playable. It's not, Darrell murmurs. Not by hands anyway. These were thought to be wind instruments made for the land itself. You blink. Wait. The land was the musician, sort of. Placed just so in the right wind path, the hills would sing through them. The instrument was the interpreter. You take a cautious step forward, heart thrumming. The note sounds again, stronger this time. Almost frustrated. Theo stays back. Just so we're clear, we don't touch the ancient wind flute that's possibly haunted, right? But, of course you do. Not recklessly, gently. Just a hand resting against one of the stone pipes. It's cold, and then warmer. Suddenly, sound floods the air. Not music, voices, dozens, hundreds, layered like a rushing river of people trying to speak at once. You stumble back. What was that, you gasp? Sarah's face is pale. An echo field. Ancient recordings trapped in resonance. You try to make sense of the noise. There are fragments of language, laughter, crying, even a lullaby you swear you've heard in a dream. Theo mutters. So you invented a flute that unlocks ghosts. That's cool. Terrifying. But cool. Cass steps forward, her tone serious. This is a memory vault. But it wasn't meant to be opened like this. You feel dizzy. The sound is still inside your head, circling, tugging at the corners of things you didn't even know you remembered. A cradle. A song. someone humming off-key. Then you hear it, your own notes, the first melody you ever played on the pan flute. Echoed back, distorted but unmistakable. You clutch the real flute in your hand. How does it know Sarah breathes because you're not the first? Everyone goes quiet. What she looks at you. There was another, long ago. A child who built something almost identical. The records are fragmented, but the name Pan appears though not as a god, as a boy. Historians still argue whether the deity Pan was based on a real person or purely myth. This leans toward real. Theo's eyes widen. So, your pan flute is actually Pan's flute. You shake your head. No, I didn't find it. I built it. Daryl steps forward, eyes intense. Or you remembered it. Not consciously, but somewhere deep. In the bones of memory passed down by breath and tone. The wind shifts again. The stone flute moans softly. And you realize something chilling. It's waiting, not for you to play it, but for you to finish what it started. You step back from the stone flute, heart-pounding ears still ringing with ghost melodies. The sound it released wasn't just a recording. It felt alive, reactive, like it had been listening for centuries, waiting for someone to come along with the key. And, lucky you apparently are the key. Sarah's watching you closely. Are you all right? You nod, but it's a lie. You feel like a cracked tuning fork buzzing unstable half a note away from snapping in two. Your flute hums again, soft now, like a lullaby humming you to sleep. Theo breaks the tension with a slow clap. So, do we declare you the Flute King now, or do we have to fight a wind spirit for the crown not helping you mutter? Daryl crouches near the stone flute. He traces the bass, then the surrounding dirt. There's more under here. Maybe a full harmonic frame. Sarah joins him. If it's part of a network, we may have stumbled onto one of the last tone pylons. Kes whistles low. You think there's a full array. Historians still argue whether the tone pylons ever formed a complete grid, Sarah says. But this could be evidence. You're not sure what a tone pylon is, but it sounds expensive and slightly dangerous. Theo nudges you. Are you going to try playing your flute again? You glance at it. The reeds seem longer than you remember. Or maybe they're growing. Warping, adjusting, like the instrument is evolving to meet some new requirement. That shouldn't be possible. And yet, you blow a tentative note. Immediately, the wind stills. Everything stops. The tone is warm, even gentle, but it presses like it's nudging a pressure plate in the sky. And the ground beneath you responds. The bell plate you stepped on earlier vibrates faintly. Then another nearby chimes in, and suddenly you're standing in the middle of a song being played by the land itself. It's haunting. A blend of earthy bass tones and hollow harmonics, like an ancient whale singing in slow motion under mountains. Your own pan flute adds a melody that dances just above it all, threading through the prehistoric chorus like a butterfly with perfect pitch. Cass is staring around in disbelief. This is a geophonic relay. We thought they were myths. Theo squints. Geo, what now? It's a sound-based message system, not words, feelings, warnings, songs too big for a single voice. She kneels and places her hand on the soil. This whole place is alive. And it remembers. You try not to freak out, but it's hard when the hill is literally humming your tune back at you like a proud parent who just discovered karaoke. The song builds swelling with new layers. You're not playing anymore, but the flute still sings in your hand. It's acting on its own now, and for some reason you let it. Because in this moment you feel it something ancient and powerful rising from beneath the crust of time, awakened by your breath and reed and accidental genius. Then everything stops. Dead silence. The kind that makes your ears ache and your thoughts too loud. And then, from the ridge above, a figure steps into view. You freeze. It's a person barefoot draped in ragged linen hair, wild and full of leaves. Their face is half hidden by shadow and something that might be charcoal or paint. Around their neck hangs a necklace of broken flute pieces. They carry nothing but a single reed pipe, worn smooth by age and breath. They lift it to their lips and play. One note. It pierces the air like a falling star. Clean sharp, not angry, but definite. It answers your song with authority, and it means, "Who are you to call me?" You feel it in your chest. The figure lowers the pipe, tilts their head. Theo whispers, "Okay, so, do we say hi, or run you step forward?" The figure watches you unreadable. Then, slowly, they descend the ridge. Sarah tenses but doesn't stop you. When they reach you, you can see them clearly. They're not old, but not quite young either. Their eyes are unsettling, like they've heard too much. They gesture to your flute. You hold it out. They examine it, turning it in their calloused hands, running a thumb over each pipe. Then they nod once and hand it back. Then they reach into their cloak and draw out a piece of parchment brittle with age. They hand it to you. On it, a diagram. A full array of pan-flute configurations, hundreds of variations. Some curved, some circular, some built into wind walls or mounted on ridges. It's an entire language of breath and tone. You look up, stunned. Where did you get this? They don't answer. Just smile briefly. And vanish. Literally vanish. No puff of smoke. No dramatic swirl of leaves. Just gone. Theo stares. Okay, that's cheating. I wanted to ask if they eat soup like normal people. You're still holding the paper heart pounding. Sarah leans in. That was a piper. I thought they were extinct. You blink. A what, wanderers who preserve ancient sound? They don't speak often. Some say they're not entirely human anymore. Historians still argue whether they're descended from monks or something older. Durrell says quietly. Kess takes the diagram. These configurations. Some of these match the archive's sealed forms, and others I've dreamed this one. She points to a spiral-shaped flute that loops like a seashell. You realize what this means. Your pan flute wasn't an accident. It was a starting point. And now, thanks to a ghostly woodland jazz legend, you have the full spectrum. Theo smirks. So, what's next? Do we build the mega flute and summon a sky whale? But in your heart, you already know. Something's listening. Something that wants you to finish the song. The diagram hums in your hands, not literally, but close. It's so detailed, so impossibly ancient and clever, that it feels less like a drawing and more like a living suggestion. Your eyes trace the world loops of a spiral flute, the ladder-stacked reeds of a vertical wall harp hybrid, and a long fluid arc that seems built for wind to play, not humans. Kess studies the paper like she's deciphering runes. This one here, she says, tapping the center of the page isn't just a flute, it's a map. Theo, ever the skeptic, raises an eyebrow. Looks like a backward centipede to me. Sarah steps beside her. No, she's right. See the symbols along the arc. They're old tonal markers. This is a tonal path. If we follow it, we'll find where the next resonance point lies. Darryl pulls out a small compass-like device with chimes for hands. He sets it against the page. The arc points northeast, toward the Canadros Peaks. You groan. Please tell me that's not the place locals call wind that eats your ears. Theo beams. Yup, also known as Where Boots Go to Die. So that's where you're headed. The hike starts slow, the terrain turning rocky and angular, like the earth once sneezed and forgot to clean up after itself. As you climb, the wind becomes a character of its own, mischievous nosy, occasionally shrieking at you like a banshee having a tantrum. Every now and then, your flute buzzes quietly in response, almost like it's trying to soothe the landscape, or maybe warn you. By midday, you come upon the remains of an old listening station, a half-buried dome bristling with rusted pipes and curved sound catchers bent in odd directions, as if they heard something too powerful and tried to run away. Sarah crouches beside what used to be a resonance dish. This is pre-rift tech. They used these to track underground tonal surges. Some people believed they could detect emotional echoes left in stone. Historians still argue whether they picked up geological vibrations or, quote, the echoes of grief Durrell adds. Theo pokes the edge of a snapped pipe. So, basically, it was one big sadness antenna. Kess traces a pattern in the moss near the dome's edge. These markings match the piper's diagram. You feel the shift before it happens. Your flute heats up slightly, the notes inside it swelling like they're getting ready for a concert nobody bought tickets for. The wind shifts. From behind the ridge, a low tone builds. You don't hear it exactly, you feel it. In your teeth, your lungs. Even your kneecaps start to hum sympathetically, which should not be medically possible. You round the rise and stop dead. There, jutting from the mountainside, is a massive, half-buried instrument, shaped like the flute on the diagram. But this thing is the size of a bus. Worn, cracked its pipes, leaning like drunken columns, yet unmistakably musical. The notes are coming from it. Somehow, despite the obvious lack of any player. You take a step closer. Theo says, backing up, this feels very ancient god trap to me. But you ignore him. The flute, this giant land flute, is vibrating in slow pulses. Your own instrument thrums in response, and without meaning to, you raise it to your lips. You blow. The sound blends with the mountain instrument's tone, and the air shifts. Suddenly, the clouds roll back. A circle of clear sky opens above you like someone unscrewed a jar lid from the weather. And, in that moment, a cascade of tones spills from the mountainside instrument notes that shouldn't be possible. They echo across the peaks in a sequence that feels intentional, like a message. Cass scrambles to record the tones. Sarah's eyes are wide with realization. It's a tonal sequence, and it's structured. It's not just music, it's data. Durrell nods. This could be an ancient language, compressed into sound. You lower your flute, heart pounding. Then the mountain flute gives one final long note, and falls silent. Theo whispers, "Did we just unlock musical Morse code?" Kess checks her notes. "I don't think it was a sentence. I think it was coordinates. And, of course, they point deeper into the range. Of course they do." The next 2 days are a blend of hiking, freezing, near falling off precipices, and the occasional sarcastic remark from Theo. Each night, the tones return distant hums, echoing through stone, guiding you forward, like the world's weirdest lullaby. One night, around the fire, Cass shares something strange. "When I was little, I used to have dreams about playing an instrument I'd never seen. It was curved like the diagram, and I wasn't alone. Someone stood behind me guiding my hands." She pauses. They wore a crown of reeds. You glance at your flute. Pan Sarah stares into the flames. There are stories that the original piper wasn't one person, that it was a lineage. People chosen by tone, called by breath. Some say it's less a bloodline and more a memory line. Historians still argue whether it's myth or inheritance, Darrell says. Theo, lying flat and using his bag as a pillow, mutters, "I argue that I'm too tired for this much mystery." You smile. You're tired too. But there's something stirring in your chest, a quiet certainty. This isn't just a journey anymore. It's a reawakening of an art lost to time, of voices long silenced, of songs waiting to be sung once more, not just by you, but through you. Tomorrow you'll follow the next set of tones. But tonight, as the wind hums softly against the cliffs and your flute vibrates with faint echoes, you let yourself drift into dreams where the sky sings in spirals and the earth plays harmony. You wake before dawn as the mountains exhale a slow, misty breath that wraps the valley in silver. Your flute is already humming low and restless like it wants to be somewhere else. The others stir one by one, stretching limbs, sipping lukewarm tea, and adjusting their gear in quiet coordination. This has become routine wake walk. Listen for notes older than cities. You're not surprised anymore when the world sings back. Kes checks her recorder eyes, flicking to the coordinates pulled from last night's sequence. "We're close," she murmurs. "One more ridge." You climb. The sun rises behind you, casting golden fingers over the jagged peaks. It's beautiful, but also a little rude, like nature showing off when your legs already feel like wet spaghetti noodles. Theo mutters, "I'm starting to think the pan flute was invented just so people had an excuse to hike dramatically." You crest the final ridge and stop. There it is. An enormous stone amphitheater carved into the mountainside. Ancient, yes, but with curves so precise they still hold acoustic integrity. Moss clings to its outer ledges and faint grooves line the seating rows, some decorative, others clearly musical notations. And in the center stands a raised platform shaped exactly like the spiral flute from the diagram. Kes gasps. This is the singing ring. Sarah nods. Built to amplify natural resonance. Supposedly, with the right instrument, one player could fill the entire valley with sound. Darrell adds, historians still argue whether it was ever used as a weapon or simply for ritual. Some claim it made enemies weep mid-battle. Honestly, Theo says if someone walked into war playing a pan flute that hard, I'd just surrender on principle. You step forward. Your flute grows warm again. It's time. The others form a loose semicircle around the ring. You climb the steps to the center platform, heart hammering in time with the wind. You raise the instrument. And play. The first note is soft, so soft, you're not sure it left your lips. But it echoes. A perfect ripple. The air vibrates and the amphitheater answers. Stone resonates. Wind curls inward like an attentive cat. You play a second note. This time the sound shoots outward, bouncing off the cliffs, spiraling up into the sky and returning as harmonic feedback. The sound expands, builds. Echoes twist around you in a spiral. The air leans in, waiting. You begin the full sequence. The notes from the diagram, the ones burned into your dreams, now come together in a melody that feels older than breathing. Each phrase unlocks another layer of resonance in the ring. The stone sings. Your bones tremble. The very sky seems to hum. And then the final note. You hold it longer than you mean to, and as it leaves your flute, something shifts. A low, rumbling tone from below. Deeper than your hearing, you feel it in your heels. The platform beneath you begins to descend. Theo yelps. Okay, we're doing this surprise elevator. You drop with the platform into darkness. The others scramble after you, Kes leaping to follow as hidden stairs reveal themselves along the edge. you descend into shadow. The air cools. The walls around you are smooth, carved with faint patterns, sound glyphs you realize. They shimmer faintly as your flute buzzes. Each step down hums a little higher like a reverse xylophone. And then at the bottom, a vast, echoing chamber. Round, silent. A single stone pedestal stands in the middle. On it, an object wrapped in reeds sealed with a twist of silver wire. You step closer. The air thickens, pressing gently against your chest. The object pulses faintly. You reach out, and the silver unwinds itself like it's been waiting just for you. The reeds unfold. Inside is a flute, but not like yours. It's older, simpler, shorter. The pipes are uneven rough, yet each is carved with delicate etchings in an alphabet you don't recognize. You lift it. It's warm, almost grateful. Sarah whispers, "That's the seed flute." You turn. The what? It's a legend. The first breath-carved instrument, said to hold the original harmonic code of the earth. No one's seen it in, well, ever. Durrell says historians still argue whether it was ceremonial or functional. Some believed it could literally tune tectonic plates. Theo nods slowly. So, no pressure. You blow a note. It's tiny, pure, barely there, but the entire room responds. Light spills from the walls. Not electricity, but vibration turned visible. Glyphs bloom like fireflies. The dome's ceiling shimmers with star-like points that shift and rearrange into patterns, spirals, flares, waveforms. You're not just hearing sound. You're seeing music. Kess stands beside you, mouth open. It's visual resonance mapping. This place is a library. The seed flute is the key. You look down at it. Small, worn, kind of ugly if you're being honest. And yet it might hold more knowledge than any book ever printed. You sit, play again. Each note opens a new sequence of glyphs. You don't recognize the language, but you feel the intention messages encoded in breath and rhythm. Lessons, warnings, memories. And then you see it, an image of a figure playing the spiral flute. They wear a crown of reeds. Beside them, others. A chorus of players. Different flutes, same purpose. And behind them, rising above the ancient landscape, what looks like a great storm. Not rain, not wind, but sound. A sonic force so strong it shaped canyons. You lower the flute. You understand now. The pan flute wasn't invented by accident. It was summoned into being by a need to respond to echo what the earth was already trying to say. You stand. You're not done yet. But this was the turning point. The moment you realized that you didn't make the flute. The earth made it through you. And now it wants the rest of the song. You rise slowly, the seed flute, still warm in your hands, its subtle thrum matching your pulse like a second heartbeat. Above you, the glyphs on the ceiling continue to shimmer, repeating patterns, as if urging you to memorize their shape before they fade. Cass is the first to speak. If these patterns are what I think they are, they're instructions. Not just notes or tones. Construction blueprints. For an instrument, you ask, though part of you already knows the answer. For the instrument, she says, the original design, the one that predates all others. Theo squints. So, let me get this straight. You've got a blueprint, a flute key, and a mythical underground sound vault. What's next? A talking frog who teaches jazz theory. You grin. Honestly, wouldn't even blink at that point. Still, you're not laughing for long. As the light from the glyphs dims, the chamber starts to vibrate not violently, but persistently. Like a timer has started ticking, Sarah steadies herself against the wall, scanning the fading light. We woke something, she says, and I think it expects us to finish what it started. Darrell points back up the steps. We should move. You all rush back into the spiral corridor, the tones of each step now sounding sharper, like the very architecture is tuning itself. Back above ground, the amphitheater glows faintly. It's dusk now, and the wind moves differently, steadier, more deliberate. A tone rides its gusts. Not chaotic, not random, a scale. Descending. You freeze. It's responding to the seed flute Sarah murmurs. Whatever ancient signal was embedded in this place, it heard the note and started the call. Theo looks up at the sky. Cool, cool, cool. No big deal. Just summoning the literal music of the spheres, probably. You almost say something light, but the truth sits heavy behind your ribs. This isn't just an ancient signal. It's a test. You all gather around a makeshift camp that night, too wired to sleep. You pass the seed flute around carefully, each person trying a note. When Cass blows into it, the air around her shivers slightly. Darrell's tone draws faint sparks of light from the amphitheater's rim. But when you play it again, just a soft, short phrase, a ripple of sound cascades through the valley, echoing against every cliff, every rock face in perfect synchronicity. Like the landscape has been waiting for your breath to return. Sarah whispers, "You were meant to find it." You shake your head. "I was literally just trying to fix a broken school instrument." She smiles. "Exactly." The next morning you follow the map again, this time not a drawn diagram, but an intuitive sense sparked by last night's playing. Like you downloaded coordinates into your bones. The journey leads you further north, where the peaks bend inward and narrow into a series of sharp ridges. The terrain becomes brutal, every step a gamble on gravel that might decide to turn into a landslide. But you keep going. And then, nestled between two sheer cliffs, you find it. A hidden cavern, its entrance nearly invisible beneath layers of overgrown reeds and ancient flags, most long torn apart by wind. Inside, the temperature drops, not from cold, but from absence. The sound here is stifled, muted. Even your breathing feels swallowed. At the far end stands a curved wall, black stone etched with the same swirling glyphs you saw below ground. And in the center of the floor, a strange tiered structure shaped like an enormous spiral shell. Sarah walks around it slowly. This is a construction nest. You blink. For birds, for flutes, she says, and touches the shell's rim. This is where they were shaped, where breath met bark and sound became structure. Kess adds, the spiral design amplifies tonal memory. It doesn't just make flutes, it remembers everyone ever made here. Darrell steps back. Historians still argue whether these nests were sacred sites or simply sonic forges. Some even claimed they grew instruments organically. Theo snorts. What, like a musical vegetable garden? But no one laughs, because the truth hangs heavy in the air. The spiral isn't empty. It holds pieces. Reeds, long petrified, their hollow cores glowing faintly. Metal bands shaped to hug sound channels. Even strings delicate and impossibly fine, coiled like the breath of wind made visible. The moment your seed flute touches the rim of the nest, a low tone rings out. Then movement. The pieces inside shift, float, swirl into formation, not assembling a single flute, but forming multiple shapes. Some short, others curved, one a massive arc too wide to carry. But all are variations on the same idea, the pan flute. Cass stares awed. These are the iterations, every design that came before the modern version. Sarah whispers, "We're watching evolution." You step forward and the pieces begin to sing. Not words, just notes. But each one lands with a tug behind your eyes, like you're remembering something that never happened to you. One instrument drifts toward you, smaller than the seed flute, but older. Cracked. You raise it to your lips. The note that comes out is nothing short of holy. It splits the air clear golden and mournful. Behind you, Theo swears under his breath, which earns a shushing elbow from Daryl. You don't need to be told. This isn't a museum. It's a memory palace made of wind and wood. And you've just been handed the master key. You turn to your team. We have to document this. Kess is already scribbling. Daryl begins mapping the spiral's dimensions. Sarah hums the echo of your note, harmonizing under her breath. Theo just sits on a rock, staring at the whirling parts. So, what you're saying is the pan flute wasn't accidentally invented. It was designed, and redesigned, and stored here like the world's most melodious secret. You nod. Exactly. And you realize there's one more thing you need to do. Not just play it, not just learn from it, but build one of your own, the next version. Not to own, to offer, to the wind, to the earth, to whatever forces buried this music and waited centuries for someone foolish enough or brave enough to come looking. You stand at the edge of the spiral nest, the newly awakened flutes still hovering gently around you like shy birds, unsure if you're friend or predator. Your hands tighten around the seed flute, its warmth now a steady calming thrum in your palm, like it knows you're about to ask it to do something bigger than just play. I'm going to build one, you say aloud. The others look up. Theo raises an eyebrow. You mean like a pan flute? No, you reply, your voice softer than the chamber's hush. The flute. The one we saw in the glyphs. The next version. Sarah crosses her arms. You sure you're ready for that? You stare at the spiral construction nest, the coiled components still glimmering with quiet energy. I think it's been ready longer than I have. Kess cracks a smile. Well then, time to go full mythic craftsman mode. The work begins. At first, you just observe. The nest doesn't work like a 3D printer or some fancy sci-fi forge. It responds to breath intent and tone. You find that when you hum certain melodies while touching different parts of the spiral, the components shift. Pipes slide into place. Bands tighten. Even reed segments realign. It's not construction, it's collaboration. You hum a tone you barely understand, and a curved pipe responds by bending ever so slightly. Sarah's hand brushes a glyph, and one of the smaller pipes detaches, floating over to your work area like a curious child. By midday, you've assembled the base, a crescent-shaped backbone of dark wood, layered with metallic accents. It's heavier than your old flute, but balanced as if it's meant to ride your breath like a leaf on water. Theo whistles. So that's what happens when an IKEA flute meets divine geometry. Kess giggles, but you don't laugh. Your eyes are locked on a series of notched reeds waiting to be placed. You recognize the design distinctly uneven, like they're meant to mimic bird calls or shifting wind through canyon walls. Sarah watches as you line them up. You're not just building a flute, she says. You're building a message. You nod. One the earth can understand. That afternoon, something strange happens. The glyphs around the spiral chamber brighten not all at once but in waves, like ripples across a pond. The light pulses with the same rhythm as your breath, and you realize the chamber is syncing with you. This flute. It's not just an instrument. It's a translator, Daryl murmurs. Historians still argue whether these ancient musical chambers were used for communication meditation or navigation. But maybe it was all three. Maybe they were trying to send instructions through sound. You finish the main body of the flute by nightfall. It rests in your lap, now silent and expectant. You study it. The design is unusual, part pan flute, part curved horn with subtle variations in each pipe. It looks like something that wouldn't be out of place in a museum or an alien temple. Kes crouches beside you, pointing. That pipe's tuned to 432 hertz. That's the frequency of natural resonance. Some say it's how the pyramids were aligned. Theo throws a granola bar wrapper into his pack. Others say it's just a conspiracy theory invented by musicians who can't afford auto-tune. You smile faintly. But deep down, you know this flute matters. Not because it looks mystical or ancient or cool, but because it feels like something the world has been waiting for. You lift it to your lips, and for a second, you hesitate. What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if you play the note and nothing happens? Or worse, what if everything happens? But then you remember the amphitheater, the chamber beneath it, the seed flute, the first breath. You have to try. You play. The note is sharp, clearer than any you've ever made. It slices through the still air like a line of fire across silk. Then silence. For 3 heartbeats, you think it failed. Then, the spiral nest responds. It shivers, glows. The leftover components hum softly, rearranging themselves into shapes not new flutes, but patterns. Diagrams. Sound geometry rising like holograms made of breath. The glyphs on the walls shift again, forming lines, spirals, and at the very center, a single phrase in that unknown alphabet. Kes stares wide-eyed. I think it's a name. Sarah translates slowly. Pan. Not as in bread or everything, as in the spirit. Theo furrows his brow. Like the Greek one, hooves, pipes, and chaos, sort of Sarah says. But older, wilder, less God, more embodiment. Of sound, of wilderness, of breath. You whisper it. Pan. The chamber answers with a harmonic sigh. You step back, and the flute you just built starts to glow. Faintly at first, but steadily. The pipes warm under your fingers. The metal sings softly. Not music, not yet, but potential. You cradle it like something alive. Sarah says it first. You're the pan now. You glance at her. No pressure or anything, Theo adds quickly. But if you sprout goat legs, I'm leaving you behind. Everyone laughs, but only a little. Because deep down they're all feeling the same thing. The shift. You didn't invent the pan flute. You rediscovered it. Rechanneled it. Played the first note in a song that's been building for thousands of years. Now it wants you to play the rest. You lift the flute again, heart pounding in rhythm with the earth beneath your boots. One breath in, one breath out. The wind gathers around you like a curious listener, and you play. The note you play is simple, a rising tone that holds for just a few seconds before falling gently away. But what follows? Well, the world doesn't stay still for long. The air in the chamber thickens, but not in an oppressive way. It's more like stepping into warm fog or walking into a memory. You feel your skin buzz, not from fear, but from recognition. Something in this place has been waiting for the sound you just made. The spiral nest vibrates again, the glyphs shifting once more. This time, instead of abstract patterns, they form recognizable landscapes. Mountains, rivers, ancient forests, cities that don't exist on any map you've seen. Sarah stares up at the walls. Are we looking at history? Darrell nods slowly. Or prehistory, maybe even potential futures. One glyph pulses particularly brightly, a series of layered hills with what looks like a stone circle in the center. Kes gasps. I've seen that before. It's in Sardinia. Locals call it the Whispering Stones. Theo makes a face. Wait, are we seriously following glowing musical GPS across continents now? You look at the flute in your hands, then back at the others. Looks like it. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a continuation, like once you played that note, the rest of the melody started unfolding whether you were ready or not. By the next morning, you're packed. The chamber has quieted the spiral nest, now resting as if it's spent its last effort guiding you to your next step. You leave offerings, small ones, a feather, a carved note. Even Theo adds a guitar pick with a band logo he never mentions aloud, just in case music really does get judged in the afterlife, he mumbles. As you step out into the morning light, you notice something odd. The trees near the entrance are leaning ever so slightly in one direction. Not bent by wind or weight, just gently inclined like sunflowers following music instead of the sun. You walk toward that lean. It leads you to a cliff's edge. Below is a vast valley blanketed in mist, but what catches your eye is the sound. A low, persistent hum, like an orchestra tuning up somewhere just out of sight. Sarah whispers. You hear it too. You nod. It's following us. Or maybe you're following it. The next few days pass in a blur of travel. You cross landscapes older than your language, places where the earth feels like it remembers things that people forgot. Every time you play a short melody on the flute, just to test it to feel its tone, the wind answers. Sometimes with bird calls, sometimes with shifting leaves, once with distant echoes that sound suspiciously like voices. And in each place you find clues, stone carvings, musical etchings, stories left behind by people who clearly knew something about this flute, about Pan. Some of the glyphs are repeated. A circle with 5 inner lines, a flute nested inside a spiral, a half-goat silhouette dancing atop waves. Durrell points out that symbol Pan on the waves. It's been found in both Celtic and pre-Hellenic ruins. Historians still argue whether it represents a deity, a musical principle, or a kind of guide. Maybe it's all of them, you say, tracing the shape with your thumb. You arrive in Sardinia by ferry, your group unusually quiet, as the boat rocks gently beneath your feet. Cass holds the flute case like it's a relic from a cathedral. She's not wrong. The Whispering Stones aren't far inland, nestled in a ring of hills that look suspiciously like the glyphs you saw back in the nest chamber. When you reach the site, you realize immediately this place isn't dead. There are birds, wind, a tension in the air like a concert is about to begin. The stones are massive, more weathered than the ones at Stonehenge, but arranged with deliberate intent. Circular, yes, but some lean inward, while others are twisted almost like they're listening. You walk into the center and pause. The flute hums. It's subtle, but real, vibrating softly, not from touch, but from proximity. Sarah's voice is barely above a whisper. Try it. You raise the instrument and play a single phrase. 3 notes. Down, up, rest. The response is immediate. Wind rushes through the stones like a crowd inhaling. Birds take off in synchronized spirals. The ground doesn't shake, but it does resonate. And then a second tone answers. From beneath the earth. Low, slow. Matching your phrase, but older, thicker, like it was stored in the soil and only now remembered how to rise. You freeze. Kess is scribbling furiously. That pitch, that's not modern tuning. That's based on just intonation. 5th century Dorian mode. Theo frowns. You say that like it's not freaky. You play again. And this time, more than sound answers. The very air shifts. It doesn't become hot or cold, it becomes aware. Every stone in the circle hums back a harmony, like each one holds a pipe of its own. You can feel them adjusting, shifting slightly, until the notes merge into a single chord that surrounds you from all directions. You drop your arms. The flute falls silent. So does everything else. Then, from somewhere at the edge of the circle, a melody starts. It's not played by you, or your friends. It's a memory. A ghost of a song once performed here long before your bones ever existed. It's beautiful, sad, playful, and wild. It weaves through you like ivy, each note wrapping around your ribs, tugging at your lungs, coaxing you to breathe with it, not against it. Theo whispers, "That's the oldest music I've ever heard." You nod, and it's not done yet. Because as the final notes fade, you feel something shift, not in the ground, but in your chest. A presence. Not a person exactly, not a god, just an idea. Breath made real. Sound given form. You're not alone in the circle anymore. You've summoned Pan. The presence wraps around you like a woolen mist, heavy but comforting, ancient yet utterly alive. You don't see a figure exactly, but shapes flicker at the edge of your vision. A flick of a tail, a curved horn, bare agile feet dancing on stone. You blink. It's gone. No, not gone, just not quite here the way you're here. It's like Pan exists between the notes and the breath between syllables. Every time you exhale, the presence swells. Every time you inhale, it listens. Sarah steps forward cautiously. Can you feel it too? You nod. It's watching us. Theo doesn't say anything. He's usually the first to crack a joke, but this time his face is strangely serene. Pan is close. You lift the flute again. The moment your lips meet the mouthpiece, the wind sighs. A lazy, circular breeze coils through the stones, picking up dust and forgotten birdsong. You start to play not a song you know, but one that seems to know you. The melody comes unbidden, climbing and dipping, threading its way around the stones like ivy, curling up old marble. As you play, the earth beneath your feet changes pitch. Not literally, of course, though, that would be impressive, but in feel. It becomes soft and rhythmic, like a drum stretched tight. You feel the vibration in your soles climbing up through your bones until even your teeth hum. Suddenly, the flute isn't just an instrument. It's a key. With each note, something opens. Not a door, not a portal. Something weirder and less cinematic. The barrier between you and the memory of this place thins. You see images, not visions exactly, more like imprints. Dancers circling this same space, flutes in hand. Goat-masked figures laughing under moonlight. A woman painting glyphs on stone with a brush made of hawk feathers. All gone, but not forgotten. Kes whispers, "There's a theory that music used to be a form of storytelling more accurate than writing something scholars called tonal memory transfer." Sarah frowns, like singing someone's experiences into their brain. Kes nods. Historians still argue whether certain ancient melodies actually preserved emotion itself, not just structure. Theo squints. So, musical horcruxes. More like emotional USB drives, you say, because you get it now. This flute, these stones, the melodies, they weren't made to entertain. They were made to remember, to transmit, maybe even to transform. And that presence, Pan, is the signal tower. You stop playing. For a moment, the wind goes completely still. Even the birds seem to freeze mid-flap. Then one final gust sweeps through the whispering stones, and you hear a laugh, not loud, not terrifying. A gleeful chuckle. Mischievous, but kind. The way a tree might laugh at a squirrel who fell off a branch but landed in a pile of leaves. then it's gone. And you realize the presence has left the circle. But not entirely. It's inside the flute now. You cradle the instrument, which feels inexplicably heavier, as though it's carrying a second heartbeat. Theo exhales, running a hand through his hair. Well, I'll just say it. I think you accidentally became a demigod. I didn't become anything you say. I just remembered something old. Sarah leans forward. So, what now? You look to the flute. The answer is immediate. You play again. And this time, it's not a summoning. It's a reply. The melody you send is complex, drawn from everything you've learned, every echo you've gathered. And the world answers. The stones begin to glow faintly. Faint musical notes flicker across their surface like reflections on water. Not just visual echoes, vibrational ones. You can feel the sound stretch far beyond this circle, across forests, over mountains, through cities sleeping under blinking streetlights. The pan flute isn't just music now. It's a signal, a beacon, and others hear it. Not in the literal sense. Nobody's going to wake up and say, "Ah, yes, the Song of Pan is back on the air," but somewhere people feel it. In their bones, in their dreams, in the back of their minds when the wind shifts unexpectedly. You feel it too. Not a voice exactly, but a nudge. Time to move again. You and your team leave the whispering stones in respectful silence. None of you speak until the car is miles down the winding road. Then Theo mutters, "So, is this like a musical scavenger hunt or a magic flute-based road trip to cosmic understanding?" You smirk. Why not both? Back at your next rest, stop a weathered hostel halfway up a mountain, you finally get a moment alone with the flute. It lies on the bed, soft and quiet. You touch it gently, and it hums back. There's something inside now. Not Pan, not exactly, but a piece of that wild, breathless energy. Like you scooped up a bit of starlight in your hands and somehow convinced it to sit still. You know what's next. Not because anyone told you, because the flute knows. And so do you. This isn't the end of the journey. It's just the interlude. There are more stones, more chambers, more songs. You're not done yet. But for now, you let yourself drift into sleep, the flute beside you on the pillow, like an old friend who hums lullabies in a language only your dreams understand. The dreams that night are quieter than before, but not empty. They pulse like waves, soft and slow, carrying melodies too old for your waking brain to decipher. You drift through places that don't exist on maps. Forest clearings glowing with bioluminescent fungi, skyless halls where strings of light play themselves. Deserts where the sand whistles with every footstep. You wake just before sunrise, the kind of early where the world hasn't yet remembered to be loud. The flute lies where you left it, resting against your chest, and your first instinct is to check if it's still humming. It is. Not constant, more like breathing. A low rise and fall like it's dreaming alongside you. Darrell's already up. He's sketching out route options on a napkin, a cup of espresso in one hand, and a look of grim, caffeinated purpose on his face. There's a site in Romania, he says without preamble. They found a cave system there in the 90s, Mobile Cave. Totally sealed off for millions of years. Different air composition. Weird life forms. But some believe it might be connected to other underground systems. You raise an eyebrow. We're heading into a prehistoric gas cave because there's evidence of bone flutes near that region, he replies. One was found in the Carpathians dated to 40,000 years ago. Historians still argue whether it was a Neanderthal artifact or early Homo sapiens. But either way, music existed before civilization. Sarah joins yawning. Let me guess, you want to see if the flute does anything weird underground. Theo appears in the doorway, already chewing on an apple. I swear, if that cave has spiders the size of cats, I'm out. Kes is last, holding her notebook like a spellbook. We don't need to spelunk the entire thing. Just get close. See what the flute remembers. And so, once again, you move. The journey to Romania takes time, planes, trains, and one shockingly aggressive goat encounter on a mountain road that none of you will speak of ever again. But eventually, you find yourselves near the entrance to Mobile Cave. You're not going inside, not the deep chambers. It's too dangerous, too toxic, and you're not here to disturb ecosystems that have thrived in isolation for eons. But there's a clearing nearby where early explorers once camped, and that's where you set up. The flute is silent. At first, you wait. Then, just as the wind shifts and the clouds drag thin across the morning sun, you feel it stir. Not from within this time, but from below. The soil under your feet hums in harmony with the instrument, soft and tremulous. And then for the first time since you found it, the flute plays without you. A single note. Deep, ancient, sad. Theo actually drops his coffee. Okay, that wasn't wind. No one answers, because in that moment you hear a second sound, a response. It's faint, coming from the trees at first, or maybe the hills. Then you realize it's the ground. Somewhere beneath your feet another flute echoes back the melody. It's not an exact match. It's older, rustier, like it's being played through water. But it's answering. Kes scribbles furiously. That's a call and response structure. Folk music around the world uses it. But this is across time. You play again, this time intentionally. 3 notes rise, fall, pause. The underground flute replies with 4, then 5. It's teaching you, or maybe remembering you. Sarah steps back, eyes wide. There's another player. Down there. No, you say quietly. There was. And somehow, across millennia, they're still playing. You don't stay long. The air feels heavier now, not dangerous, just sacred. You've done what you came to do. You've heard the voice of a place that never expected to be heard again. That night, you make camp by a ridge overlooking the Black Sea. Theo finds driftwood and insists on a fire even though it's warm. He says it's for historical aesthetic. As flames crackle and night seeps in, you bring out the flute again. This time, you don't play it. You listen. And eventually, it plays you. The notes that come aren't ones you've learned. They're woven from the air, from the conversations you've had, from the ancient echoes that now sleep inside you. And each note paints a piece of the journey. The whispering stones, the spiraling glyphs, the goat tracks in Sardinia, the laughter of something wild, the memory of Pan. Theo lies back, hands behind his head. So, if we're part of some mystical sound wave that's been bouncing around since the Ice Age, what happens when it stops? You look at the stars. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we're not supposed to stop it. Kes nods. We're just supposed to pass it forward. Like a melody. Like a breath. Like a story too old for language. You sleep beside the fire, the flute resting beside you, still humming gently. When you dream this time, there are no caves, no ghosts, just stars blinking to the rhythm of a song that might never end. You wake to waves lapping against the rocks below, and the flute already in your hands, warm despite the morning chill. The melody from the night before is still echoing faintly in your mind, like your subconscious kept playing long after you drifted off. Theo is snoring softly beside the embers of the fire while Kes has curled into her notebook like a cat guarding its prey. You stretch inhale salt air and feel the flute shift slightly like it's restless, like it's ready. Sarah stirs. So, what now? We keep chasing ghosts through Europe. You shrug. We don't need to chase. The music's already leading, and it is. The call draws you south, through Bulgaria, across Turkey, to the edge of Mesopotamia. You're following a sound that only you can fully hear now, not a song, not quite. More like a magnetic pull disguised as harmony. The way a melody wants to resolve, the way a story wants to end. But it doesn't end. Not yet, because somewhere near the Tigris River you find something else. It's not marked on maps. It doesn't appear on any satellite images. But the flute knows. It's a ruin, a collapsed temple buried so deep beneath time and mud that you almost don't recognize it until you hear the notes. Faint, cracked like broken bells in a thunderstorm. There's a courtyard half swallowed by earth stones, gripped by twisted roots and decades of sediment. You have to crawl through a narrow gap just to reach the heart of it. And when you do, your breath catches. Because the floor beneath your feet isn't a floor at all. It's a scale. Not the measuring kind, the musical kind. A layout of massive stones, each carved with grooves and markings arranged in what Kes immediately gasps is a diatonic pattern. Think 7-note scales. Do, re, mi kind of stuff. Only older. Way older. You run your hand over one. It sings. A clear ringing tone vibrating your bones. Theo just stares. Is this an instrument? Kes nods. Not just an instrument. A place built to be played. You lift the flute. And the stones respond. Without touching them, without air, they answer. Each note from your pan flute triggers a deep harmonic from the floor, a vibration so low you feel it more than hear it. It's like the earth is a tuning fork and your song is striking it over and over. Sarah places her hand against the central slab. It's alive. You close your eyes. You play. This time with intention. You play the scale you found in the glyphs in Sardinia. You play the call and response from the Romanian cave. You play the echo from the whispering stones. You let it all flow through your breath. And the stones remember. The patterns are uncanny. They respond in rhythms that shouldn't exist. Microtones, half-step shifts, intervals that make no modern sense but stir something ancient in your chest. You remember how Kes once said music might be memory in disguise. This is proof. You're standing inside a memory. And then like flipping a switch, the ground shivers. Not an earthquake, not danger. More like a sigh, like a vault unlocking. And in the center of the scale, something rises. A small platform only a few feet wide, covered in dust, cracks laced across its surface like old skin. But embedded in the center, another flute. Older, stone, cracked but whole. You hesitate, then pick it up. The moment your fingers touch it, your breath catches. Not because it's heavy, because it's familiar. Your flute, the reed and bone one you've carried all this way, sings in resonance with the stone flute. You don't even lift it to your lips. The sound rises like steam from them both. And the melody they make, it's not yours anymore. It's theirs. A duet. A conversation through centuries. And then you hear the laugh again. That same wild chuckle from the whispering stones. That warm, half-feral delight. You turn, but you already know you won't see Pan. Not clearly, maybe ever. But you feel him. He's in the song. He is the song. Not a person, a presence. An idea so old it grew legs and a beard and started playing music in the woods just to mess with people. You smile and play one final time. The duet lasts 10 minutes, maybe 20, maybe forever, and when it ends, the stone flute crumbles in your hands, not violently, just peacefully, like its job is done. Your own flute still whole hums once more and falls silent, not dead, just at rest. Sarah breathes out. So that was it. You shake your head. No, that was a chapter. Theo whistles. A really weird, magical, goat-flavored chapter. Kess grins. We just found the oldest song on Earth. Darrell, who's been unusually quiet, finally speaks. Maybe the first one. And maybe he's right. Because standing there in a place older than stories, holding an instrument that has carried laughter and loss and love through ages, you don't feel like the end of something. You feel like a verse in something much bigger. You leave the temple as quietly as you entered, retracing your steps across the Tigris Basin with a reverence that borders on ritual. No one talks much. The weight of the duet lingers in the air like smoke after a bonfire, tangible but impossible to grasp. Even Theo is unusually quiet, though he does hum now and then, almost unconsciously. It's the same phrase over and over, a motif from the stones. By the time you make it back to Istanbul, the flute has gone silent again. Not heavy, not humming, just still, like a lantern after a long night. You settle into a small apartment with a crooked balcony and a perfect view of the Bosphorus. It's a temporary stop, a layover you all need before heading home. If you can even call any place home now. The flute's been your compass for so long, you half expect it to rattle to life at the airport and drag you to a ruined monastery in rural Bhutan. It doesn't. Instead, it sits quietly on the kitchen table between mugs of unfinished tea and Kess's ever-growing stack of transcriptions. Sarah spends the morning sorting through sound recordings, labeling them with absurd nicknames like Pan's Lament in B minor-ish and Mossy Anthem of Mystery Take 4. Theo is on the floor rearranging the chaos of his backpack. He finds a crushed granola bar that expired last August and eats it anyway. Still better than airplane food, he mumbles. You lean on the balcony rail and watch the ships go by. Somewhere between the horizon and the rooftops, you think you hear a distant trill of flute song. But it might just be a seagull fighting a plastic bag. Historians still argue whether the pan flute originated in Greece, or if it was simply adopted, shaped by the myths and motifs of the Mediterranean. There's evidence of similar instruments across cultures: the Andean zampona, the Chinese paya chiao, even prehistoric reed bundles found near lakes in Switzerland, all separated by thousands of miles and years, all singing breath into bones. Maybe invention isn't a moment. Maybe it's a rhythm, a pattern that reemerges wherever humans and wind and hollow reeds collide. Your journey has shown you one version, a ridiculous, magical, mildly perilous version involving goat gods and humming glyphs. But that doesn't mean it's the only one. Just one verse in a sprawling, unfinished symphony. Darrell appears beside you. He's holding the flute, not playing it, just turning it slowly in his hands like it might still surprise him. So he says, "Do you think Pan meant for all this to happen?" You glance at him. You mean, did a mythical half-goat demigod sneak a proto-flute into an underground vault so we'd stumble on it 20,000 years later and accidentally unlock a multi-dimensional music archive? He shrugs. Stranger things have happened. You laugh, but quietly, because maybe they have. You pack the flute carefully, no fanfare, no ceremony, just bubble wrap a soft towel and a luggage tag that says, "Handle with Sleepy Wonder." Theo watches you tape the box shut. So, is this goodbye? You hesitate. No, this is a rest, because music doesn't end. It pauses, it breathes, and when it's ready, it plays again. That night, you all gather one last time on the roof where fairy lights flicker and the city hums below like a chorus just beneath hearing. Sarah plays a soft chord on her phone. Kess hums along. Even Darrell taps out a beat with his fingers on a rusted chair leg. You don't play the flute, you let it sleep. Instead, you whistle. 3 notes, from the Romanian cave, from the bones of memory. And in the distance so far you almost don't believe it, you hear an echo. Not an answer, a harmony. Someone else is playing now. And the melody goes on. You lie back, the music still echoing faintly in your mind. The stars above Istanbul shimmer like scattered notes, each one suspended in the silent measure between dreams. The night air moves softly around you, warm against your skin, carrying just a hint of that ancient song. Half forgotten, half remembered. You've traveled so far, through crumbling ruins and whispering stones, through echoes older than cities, through myths that breathe themselves back to life. And all of it, every twist and hum and heartbeat brought you here, to this stillness, this pause between songs. You close your eyes. The weight of the flute, once humming with riddles and riddled with hums, now rests as light as air. It's done singing for now. So are you. But the music never really stops. It only waits. It waits in wind tunnels and bird calls and the slow trickle of mountain streams. In your breath, in your bones, in your dreams where Pan still chuckles and the stones still remember. So let yourself drift. Let your heartbeat slow to the rhythm of forgotten melodies. Let your mind wander back through goat tracks and glyphs, echoes and duets through deserts and dreams and that one suspiciously magical goat. And when morning comes, if you listen closely, the song might still be playing. Just for you. Soft now. Gentle. Like a secret waiting to be remembered. Good night.